I appreciate you guys both being here. This is a conversation I've been really looking forward to doing because I think both of you guys are intelligent human beings, one, but also two, you guys share a very similar kind of background in terms of being in the college realm and then leaving and going to more of the private sector. I was with Greg at TCU. Josh, I was with you at DBU, and Josh was a coach of mine, and Greg was a fellow coach of mine. So I'll give you guys a chance just to introduce yourselves to whoever may be watching, and just talk about where you're from, your background, and kind of what got you into this realm.
Josh, you can go ahead.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, my name is Josh Rays. I was originally from West Texas. Went to school out in East Texas at a small school called Laterno University. Played a little baseball out there. After that, came to Dallas. Worked at Dallas Baptist University in the athletic department for a couple of years as a GA in the strength and conditioning department before working exclusively with the baseball team there at DBU. And I would say that honestly, what got me into the world of performance and strength conditioning was just the lack thereof in my own game and my own experience as an athlete. I loved the game of baseball growing up, but just always seemed to be a little bit behind everyone else. I was just good enough to, make the all-star teams or to play with a good travel ball team, but not good enough to be like an everyday guy or a contributor. And so really for me, hitting the weight room and understanding some basic elements of speed and power and all the things that contribute were integral into bringing me to the place that I wanted to be as an athlete. So that led me down this path, and here we are today.
Awesome. My name is Greg Ziegler. I'm from just outside of Chicago, so like 45 minutes south. I don't say Chicago because I'm 45 minutes outside, but similar to Josh, I was a athlete. I would say fairly skilled in my younger years in high school, but kind of took the full dive into training as a whole when I was a freshman. I had a coach kind of push me like, hey, if you're going to play basketball, just keep in mind, like, do you think you're where you're at in terms of physicality for what you want to do in the long run? So dove straight into it, fell in love with it ever since, saw how big of an impact it made, not only physically and on the skill side, but mentally and everything else within the life. And went on to play college baseball, had a weird ride, but fortunate to have played for a lot of good coaches, been around a lot of good people, had some cool teammates, and actually had the connection of meeting Miles through one of the places I was at. I had a former strength coach who was an intern at TCU, who was one of my strength coaches at Missouri State. So spent 2 years at Missouri State, 1 year at a JUCO in Kansas City as a junior in college, which was interesting, but had a year there and then finished my last 2 years up at Michigan State. And I knew from the beginning that in some aspect training was going to be a part of my life in the long run. Whenever baseball ended, obviously we all have the goal of playing professionally, but went right into it, started interning at the place I'm currently at now, and then made my way down to Texas for a little bit where Miles and I met, and was fortunate to be down there and learn from some cool coaches and get to meet a good group of interns, and then have been at BRX Performance now here for a little bit over a year now in Milwaukee, and it's been fun and grateful to have been all over the place so far.
Hell yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's really cool talking to other guys who are in the field, so to speak. I guess I'm in the field as well. But just everyone's journey is kind of, I shouldn't say always similar, but it's always like you kind of just fall in love with training, or there's a lack thereof of training in your own environment, and it just kind of turns into like a strong passion just for like guys are strength coaches are very, very passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. So going off of that, like I'll just hop right into the first question. Like, why has there been a shift in college and professional organizations going to the private sector versus staying with their college program. Like you see these organizations like Tread Athletics, Driveline, everyone now has a private facility that does remote coaching. Why has there been a shift for a lot of athletes to go that route, even when they're in school or with a professional organization versus sticking to their own program?
Greg, you want to start that one?
Yeah, I'll go on this one. So I think there's a lot of things that go into it nowadays. I mean, one of the first things that pops into my head is the transfer portal, and you can have a lot of experience and get recruited just from having a couple years and putting up good numbers now. And development as a younger guy looks a lot different. So I think a lot of people are, and this is speaking for college, because on the pro side it would be a little bit different, but speaking for college, like it takes a lot more than when we were in high school getting recruited on the metric side and even the eye test to get with someone who is going to push you in the direction to give you the best chance to play from day one. And you know how hard it is to play from day one as a 17, 18-year-old, being around like 22, 23-year-old guys now, and hell, even older people. But I think just the search for, okay, people are just becoming more aware of how challenging it actually is to not only get looked at by these schools because they have a wider range of people to choose from, but to just get in the lineup or to get on the field. And I think that's a big thing. And then on the pro side, I was having a conversation about this with some of our other coaches who have been in pro ball, but you think of how long the guys in professional baseball are with the people that they're with or at the complex. When they get a chance to go home and be around their families and just be in an environment that either they've had success with in the past or know that is going to give them success, I think that's why they may choose. But obviously, if you're from North Dakota, you probably will opt to go train somewhere like Arizona or Florida, stuff like that. But just from my point of view, I think a lot of the youth and high school and college athletes tend to understand or are gaining the understanding that it's going to take a lot more than it has in the past.
Yeah, I think building off of that too, one thing that I think about is when I compare the types of athletes that I was getting in my days at DBU, both from the perspective of when I first got there in 2019, looking at some of the freshman athletes in any sport, whether it was baseball or track and field or soccer, compared to the type of athlete that you're getting in 2024, there is overall, I think, an increase in like the baseline level of development that you're seeing because there is so much more opportunity to train with private facilities or even higher quality coaches at the high school level that you're getting guys and girls coming into a program their freshman year having already had a higher training age than previously you would have experienced at the college level. And so at some point, kind of like the base level of strength and conditioning, kind of like the status quo that always has been, just isn't getting the job done anymore because it's not just any stimulus that is causing an adaptation in the athletes that people are getting. It has to be more specific. It has to be more nuanced. And so, from that standpoint, if you've got a coach in your program who is not a little bit more forward thinking and maybe is not having the perspective of thinking about what is it that these athletes most need right now instead of what is it that I've been taught that they need the second that they come on campus, I think that you just start to lose the value oftentimes that a collegiate strength coach can give. On the pro side, I think that there is a similar element where really it's just the value that somebody in the private sector can provide someone and that they answer to no one but the athlete themselves. Like they're the boss. And at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is getting results for them. Not the organization, not the team, it's the individual. So I think that that's really one of the best explanations for the draw to the private sector for professional athletes.
Yeah, I think especially with college baseball, like going off what you said, Josh, like you have guys that come in that just clearly do not need like that foundational program.
Yeah.
Like we get guys at TCU that were like lifting the house and I throw a
Yeah.
hundred. So it's like,
Absolutely.
it's kind of like one of those things. It's like, well, like, do you want to have them go off from everybody else in a team sport and when you're trying to build a culture and have them do their own complete thing because they don't need any of this, or do you have them kind of bite the bullet a little bit and waste? I shouldn't say waste, but you do 8 weeks of something that they're already damn good at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, I think even for me, like, because I was with Tread Athletics for 3 years in school from my sophomore year to my senior year. And for me, it was more of like comfort, like kind of what you said. It's like a nonpartisan, like person there, like trying to help you get better. Versus there might be some different opinions when you go to a coach or you go to somebody else that's within your college program. So I think it's definitely been a huge shift. Because I mean, like I know guys that are at LSU that are with Tread Athletics, and it's like you'd expect, hey man, like you're at a top program, the one of the top programs in the country. It's like why are you guys going off and doing that? But no, clearly I think there's a lot more to look into with that. So and going off of that, like I want to get even further than just beyond the physical, like because I think both of you guys are individuals that agree with me, and we've had these conversations before. But like, how does a strength and conditioning coach fit into developing not only the physicality but also to like the spirit, the mind, and just maturity as well for an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I had a unique perspective on this in my time at DBU just because of the emphasis that the DBU baseball program puts on thinking about the baseball player as being more than just the body. That's something that Coach Hefner preached religiously is, we're looking at developing athletes, mind, body, and soul. And when you look at the success of the DBU baseball program, the long-standing success of it, I think that one of the things that you have to get down to is understanding that it's not just because they are so methodical and intentional with their practices and the time that they spend in the cages and in the pitching lab. It's more than that. It's because of the fact that they take the time to develop the whole person. And when you think about what it means to be like a thriving human being, you have to say, I'm going to spend time and energy on developing all aspects of the human being. And so you're only as strong as your weakest link as a person. And I think that's one of the things that you just see repeatedly on the field is you have a freak of a human athletically who is missing some component that holds them back from their peak performance. And people try to spend time addressing the mind in that category. And I think that it works. There's plenty of ways that we can work on the mental game of baseball and performance. But at some point, if you train the mind and the body, you're still excluding something else, something that's deeper than mind and body, and that is like our spirit. I fully believe that we are spiritual beings. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ and the fact that like we each have an eternal destiny, and there is this like huge tension for us in our lives where we are just wanting to have assurance and security, and we look for that assurance and security and identity in so many different things. And unless it's found in Jesus, then there is this huge space, this huge gap that we have in our lives. And it just breeds insecurity, it breeds anxiousness. And inevitably, when you talk about performance, like those things are killer, right? So yeah, I mean, there's a piece of why it's important to address the whole person. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, Greg.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I'd have to give, I mean, I wouldn't say I've always been the greatest Christian or like have put so much time into my faith, but now and as I got older in my baseball career and on into my coaching career, the more I put into Jesus, the more I feel grounded, if that makes sense. But yeah, like you said, Josh, going off of you're only as strong as your weakest link. If you just train to look at the numbers like, oh, I need to get my force plate numbers to this or my velo to this. You can do that, but at the end of the day, when you have runners on second and third, or you're in the box in a pivotal point in the game, you're going to fall back to your training. And a lot of people say confidence is a product of what you do. And I firmly believe that. This topic honestly fires me up because I was the guy towards the end of my career who was like, all right, let's make sure our lockers are clean, or let's make sure we pick up our weights, or we're not skipping sets, reps, all this stuff at the end of the day may not be the most important. But when it comes down to championship level teams and guys who play the longest, from what I've seen and what I try to build into, and my perspective is on the youth side, so it's a little bit different, but everything matters. And it might not get you to throw harder. It might not get you to hit the ball further or raise your bat speed. But at the end of the day, there's many things that college coaches look at. There's many things that people in pro ball look at. And if you can control something, I think it's worth putting time into.
I think the best test for someone's mind and spirit is a long duration ISO. I think I think it was like maybe like day two where the first day at DBU, I'm a fifth year senior. I'm there practicing early in the summertime, and I'm the only senior. I'm the only upperclassman there. It's me and what, like nine other freshmen.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. The very first day, like Josh is telling us, like, hey, like this is how you should be standing, this is how your feet should be, like, whatever. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? And then very next day we do a hard lift, very, foundational program esque. And then the very end, he's like, all right, everyone, we're gonna drop down and do 3 minute ISO here. And then it might even been for
Man.
for as long as you can,
Yeah.
right? And like everybody's shaking and stuff, and like I had to tap into like, hey, you're the fifth year senior here, like
Yeah.
you have to hold this for as long as you can. And I think it ended up being like me and Dylan Schlegel that were the last two, and I think I ended up winning. But it was like, man, I am not going down. Like I can't. We had it for like 4 minutes, and if you had just set a timer on for, hey, go as long as you can, I probably would have dropped in a minute in 10 seconds. But like just the fact that like I had to like tap into that next step. And now it's something that I really try to strive to in my training as well. Like I don't care about the physical anymore. I'm old enough. I'm more mature than I was, but physically, but like spiritually, mentally, like I that's something I really always tap into in my training, no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah, that's something that I think about all the time, and I talk about with people a lot, is the experience that I would give our incoming freshmen whenever we get them on campus. And it evolved so much in the time that I was there, and one of the reasons being because I started to see that what we were doing was so much more than physical. And one of the best examples of that is that my first year working with the baseball program, I think that I was programming like 30-second ISO lunges for our guys week one, and maybe I worked it up to like a minute. And it was crazy, 30 seconds, and these dudes are like wincing and like, oh, like this is so hard. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, like this is good stuff. We're working our tails off. And then, it's funny, like over time, I want to say in the fall of 2021, we had a recruit come onto campus who was this like physical specimen, but he started showing me some of his training, and I was like, who are you? Like, what are you doing? Are you making this up yourself? And he was like, no, I work with this guy named Dak. And I'm like, Dak? Like, what kind of name is that? And then, I realized his name's Brady Volmering. And so I look this guy up and I'm just like scrolling his Instagram nonstop and then get on a call with him and do a 4-week program. And it starts hitting me like what I was doing was so much deeper than hitting 3 sets of 5 front squats and then doing some RDLs and then holding a 30-second ISO lunge. Like I was getting down into the core of who I was as a person in the program that I was doing. And the only thing that it reminded me of, and this is like way oversharing, but I think it's really important to understand, is after my freshman year of college, I actually went and began a program called the PLC program in the Marine Corps. And it is essentially a way to go through officer candidate school as a college student. And while I was there in Quantico, Virginia, like training to become a officer in the Marine Corps, I learned how to push myself so much harder than I ever thought that I ever could. And it was crazy how I won't go any deeper into that story because it's way too long. But when I came back from that, I had a very imperfect strength and conditioning program written by myself as a freshman in college. And it was the level of intensity and intentionality that I brought into it that drastically changed me as a human being and also as a baseball player. And it was after that that I actually began to develop as an athlete. And it was just because of this mindset and this intentionality that I brought into my training that said, I'm going to keep digging deeper into who I am as a person. And so, like, with that in mind, understanding the depth that we can go to through our training, I started to see at DBU, well, man, I can push guys way farther than their expectations will allow them if I define their expectations when they get on campus. And so, year two, after programming 30-second ISO lunges, I was said, hey, the expectation is day one, every single one of you is able to hit a 3-minute lunge. And every single freshman hit a 3-minute lunge. And like it was grueling and it was intense, but like that was just the expectation. And so that was what everyone did, like that was just it. And so then, yeah, like that's what it got to, Miles, when you got onto campus is, hey, we're gonna now like explore the depths of our soul day one because we want to know like who are you? Like this is going to literally tell us everything that we need to know about who you are because who you are is inevitably what matters most in who you will be on the field. And so like the weight room is the place to see like the innermost person because you can get down to the absolute bare bones of your soul. I really do believe that.
I got
All right.
something off of that
Rant
too.
over, sorry.
No, 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 no,
No,
no. It's okay.
that's awesome. That's awesome because that just sparked an idea as well. But sorry to cut you off, Miles, if you were about
No, no,
to
go
go.
ahead. No, go
But
ahead.
similar thing, Josh, but it happened a little bit later in my playing career when you were talking about imperfect program. My best like development period while playing, and I don't like to just compare like all of my coaching and training and programming thoughts to myself, but my most beneficial time of training came when I was like, okay, I'm not going to play summer ball. This was going into my last year, and I have 3 months, give or take a little bit, to like truly get after it and make a change. And I did 3 full body days. They were the same exact training, but like I would do like a lunge and then like a hinge on one day. But 3 days throughout the week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I did the same exact lift minus like one or two movements. And I just kept telling myself, like, you just need to bust your ass and do this consistently. And I saw the most progress on that end, and it got monotonous. And I was going through it mentally, like, all right, is this working? Why am I like doing this so much and it's not really changing in terms of like, oh, this is fun because this day is better than the second day, or the third day takes a little bit less time than the first day. But when I saw how far I could push myself with those simple movements, it translated into everything else. I became more consistent on the school side. I always feel like I've trained pretty hard, but when it carried over into my consistency as a hitter and on the skill side, that's when I knew like, okay, this, you don't need science to tell you that you're doing something right when you can feel it and it's happening over and over again. And it just made me be a lot more aware of myself. And that's when I felt like I really aligned with being intentional with the things that I do, because ultimately what you do is going to affect something else. If your goal is to be on the field and be a starter and train consistently, or to put up numbers consistently, then there's multiple things that you can do to get on that track and to stay on that track. And it comes down to not only the physical, but the mind and the spirit, like you guys were both saying.
Yeah, I think too, like when you train, like you are supposed to, your training is for the purpose of like when you go out on the baseball field, like there is no like fear, there's no just like that mental block in your head that where it's like, ah, like maybe I might fail. Like your training should be so hard. And obviously everyone always says this, your training should be so hard where like the game comes easy. I don't like that quote because it's kind of cliche to me, but I mean, in a sense it is true. Like if you are able to hold a 3 minute lunge, right? Like and your body is shaking, like you're going to like start seeing spots. Like I like to think that you can actually kind of the game can come a little bit easier for you, right? Like and that's not even like a it's not really even a perspective thing. I think it's even more of like an adaptation. I think like if you do that on a consistent basis, like we give this guy so much free marketing, Brady with Dak, like at least when I talk about it, but like
Yeah.
it's quite literally challenging your survival. Like if you're able to like microdose challenging your survival in everything you do in terms of your training, like next thing you know, like you're almost like invincible. Like I'm pretty sure I have a torn labrum or a rotator cuff tear, and I still go out there all the time, and like I don't even think about it anymore. It's like it's one of those things like I don't have any pain. Like my brain and my body have gone beyond that, I guess, in a sense, in terms of like
Yeah.
when I train and stuff. So like now it's like my body can handle the movement of throwing or the act of throwing without having to freak out. And then even more than that, when people are chanting my girlfriend's name in the crowd, I'm just kidding. But even like at TCU, like because Josh, like statute of limitations here, like, you would tell guys, hey, like go off and try some of this guy's stuff. And I know like Kobe did it, a couple other guys did it. Jared Bayless is another great example. Um, but yeah, in terms of like how we train and what we do, I think definitely like if you can find some kind of way to challenge your survival, I think it can definitely work out for you in the long run in terms of just not only your career but just how you handle life in general.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that really is that bridge between the mind, the body, and the soul is to an extent, for lack of better terms, those near death experiences that you can experience through in a simulated and safe environment through training. Because at the end of the day, really what keeps us back from our potential that we have innately, each one of us, is our own inhibition that's derived from our fears and our insecurities, and even the like, again, I'm going to get spiritual and religious, but like the sins that hold us back. I mean, I literally, I won't name any names, but I have a story of a DBU guy who was doing some rehab, and I literally had doing the craziest crap in his training. And one day he literally just broke down in the middle of a session, like just weeping, talking about this stuff that he was struggling with that just bubbled up to the surface literally through his training, because the training led him to that weakest part. And the weakest part in him was that struggle that he was going through. And that was just the wildest thing to see. Like I literally, like in that moment, I was kind of like, oh frick, geez, like I did not expect that to happen, through doing that ISO or through doing 100 reps of whatever it was or anything like that. But you just get to see how interconnected all of this really is. And when you bring someone to that point where the body is almost interpreting the stress that you're putting it under as being close to dying, it really shows you what's going on underneath the surface in the mind and the soul. And I love that. And I think that it's one of the most important things for a strength coach to consider in their training, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is change people for the better. Obviously, athletically, like that's a huge priority, but you won't change someone unless you change them at the core of who they are. And I mean, I have a day where I remember running around at DBU. I don't know if this was in the summertime or during the year, but it was a freaking hard lift, like probably a little bit irresponsible if you're talking about like maximizing force output and, training readiness and the CNS and everything. But I just like was running around during a freaking grueling lift screaming like, what does it take to change you? And like it was goofy, but like at the same time, like it's true. Like you have to understand that you have to do hard things in order to be changed, because ease and comfort are not the path there. It has to be difficulty. Like there has to be forging through fire in order to produce something that's sharp enough to cut through anything.
I'll say one thing real quick, Greg. I don't know if you know who you're talking to right now, but Josh, I think, is on the very same wavelength as you. I think you could probably already tell. Like Josh is the guy that told me he would blindfold himself, stare at the wall with a blindfold on, and do an ISO lunge for as long as he can. Like, so, and would tell me
my claim to fame is my 8 minute and 23-second lunge on my left side, not on the right, the left side only.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Josh, like I think you're kind of the first guy that I've ever talked to that's like fired up, like hey, like usually you get fired up over like things in life, like hey, I went on a ski trip, or hey, I went on vacation. Like Josh would like come in the weight room and tell me like, hey, like I just bear crawled for for how long? How long did you bear crawl around the weight room for?
28 minutes.
Hell yeah.
I had to on that. That was almost a blindfold. I had to do that blindly because the goal was to like just go into the darkness and see what came out. So I had been building up. I had like been progressing that, like increase by a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it was. But then one day I just realized like we're not getting anywhere by doing this. Like we have to just go. And whenever my mind, body, and soul, all three of them quit, like that's our limit, and that's what we found. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Greg sit up in his chair a little bit. So now I think we have Greg now. I think we got him.
Yeah. There's something that popped into my head, but something that I would write, and this was during the time that I was doing the same 3 lifts a week, was I would write down like in my notes, because I still have the program I can show you guys. It's nothing special at all. It's like just barbell, dumbbells, and that's about it. But I had the word suffer written down, and that was like the theme of the summer, is I just wanted to go to a place that I've never been every single time that I trained, knowing, okay, I'm not going to feel the same every day. I'm not going to hit PRs on numbers, but with what I have is what I'm going to give. And sessions sucked all the time, but I think that's how training should be, because if you're going in, and yes, in season or when you're trying to maximize performance, you got to be smart about it. But when there's a time to get after it, which is majority of the time, I think you need to go to a darker place or to a different place than just your 3x5. Oh, I just hit that at 85%. There's more to it.
Yeah, the best note I ever had on a lift was from Brady, and it was decide whether or not you want to do this, and then ask yourself if that's what you really want to do. And yeah,
so
like
good.
even going off of like Josh, like this is probably personal. Probably some people are gonna get mad because I haven't cried in serious situations, but I'm gonna cry during a lift. But like I got into tears like having to go into an ISO, like not during the ISO, like I'm not kidding. Like it was a 3 minute Copenhagen ISO, and just for me, like those are like I can do a 3 minute anything, but a Copenhagen ISO is like the absolute worst for me. And I was brought to tears having to go into that isometric. So yeah, definitely. I'm sure we can talk about this for a lot longer. So
That
if
was
anyone
at
has it,
DBU.
no, this is in Germany. In Germany, when I was
Oh, okay.
when I first started with Brady. But then even going off of that, like you tap into like, hey, like what is really lacking? Like whenever I would
Yeah.
throw, like, especially at DBU, like because I struggled really bad at DBU. Like whenever I was going to throw, it was always like, like man, like I just like I kind of want this to be over with. Like I'm already thinking about like the aftermath of the entire thing versus like, hey, I'm just gonna jump and dive right into it, like, and I'm just gonna give it all I got. And I found that, it sounds very cliche or corny, but like I found that with my training in Germany, because before my starts in Germany, I'd be really anxious and stuff. And I had this moment where I was just like, you know what, screw it. Like I'm just gonna do it. Like I don't decide whether or not you want to do it or not, and then ask yourself if that's what you want to do. And it got to a point where it was like, I had all these years of anxiety and just like this buildup that I've never had before ever in my whole entire life, at DBU. And then when I got to Germany, it like just clicked, and it was like, hey, like you're gonna have the same meal, you're gonna have the same, you're gonna watch the same YouTube videos afterwards, you're gonna do the entire same routine. So like your life doesn't change, the result doesn't change your life afterwards. Um, and that goes, I can go a lot deeper into that, and that's a conversation for a different day. But anyway, if anyone wants to add anything to that, they're more than welcome to.
I'll piggyback a little bit off of that, but similar to the playing time, the moment, and this was through like going to different schools. I started off, had a good freshman year, kind of got complacent, honestly, after like COVID, and expected that I was going to play my second year because I played a good amount my freshman year. And then I started to look at the environment as the reason why I wasn't playing well instead of looking internally and focusing on what I could do better. I made the switch to go JUCO, and it forced me to look internally and like just do the thing to get to where I wanted to go. Fast forward to when I transferred out of the JUCO, same thing kind of happened. I thought that what I did at JUCO was going to be enough to kind of like keep me going, but I realized after the first year back at Michigan State that I needed to do more, and that's when it brought me to the summer. I was like, I just have to go all in, and that's when I saw the most trade off, not only on the skill side, but developing physically and mentally. And that's what I try to preach to all athletes that I work with. Some of them call me robotic, some of them call me crazy and say that I'm not right, but I truly believe that you can get a lot more out of training that isn't just the way you look or your numbers.
Heck yeah.
Um, so going off of that, as former college athletes, for guys who are graduated from college or guys that aren't playing pro ball anymore, how do you find purpose in your own training?
Man, I think there's a couple things for me. One, I've done a lot of stupid things in my pursuit of trying to gain knowledge and understanding of how to train athletes and people in general. And a part of that led to a couple different stupid injuries and prolonged things that should not have necessarily been there, including, a knee and shoulder. So one part of, my motivation is, man, like I want my body to actually function well. I want to be able to do the things that I want to do. And so it's easy to get up and do something every day when you're understanding that what you're doing is keeping you out of pain. Like that's crucial. But I'd say even more than that, there is a motivation and a desire. Like I just cannot live with myself asking someone to do something that I can't do. And I think that's been one of the key elements in my success as a coach throughout my whole life is the fact that man, like if I'm going to tell you to drop down and do a 5 minute lunge ISO, like I'm going to do it with you. Like I will beat you. I will like do it looking at you in the eye and smiling while you're crying. Or, you know, even now, like I work with a lot of tennis players, and man, oh man, we have them run. Like we do some conditioning. And so, like, you bet I'm on a little bit of a running arc right now. You know, like I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to bust my butt so that I can make sure that I don't let these kids put me to shame. But on top of that, you know, the last one, like, I have a 3-month-old baby right now, a little boy. And man, it's crazy how when you have a kid, especially a son, you have this thought of like 10 years down the road, 15 years, 16 years down the road of him just like being hopefully like a freak, you know, and he's doing all these crazy things athletically. And I'm like, man, I want to stay ahead of him. You know, like I want to really, really push him, and I want to be out there training and grinding with him, like showing him the ropes. And so all of that just like makes every single day waking up. It's not always easy, but there is a reason to say yes to it. You know, like you're saying, going back to that decision, the decision is half of the change. If you can say yes to doing whatever it is that you're setting yourself out to do, like that is 50% of the change that needs to take place. So yeah, that's kind of how I stay motivated.
Did you start him with pull-up hangs yet?
He's not quite there yet, but I keep testing him every day. I like, you know, get his hands on my fingers, try to like pull him up.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Josh. I was in a little bit of a running arc this spring and summer, but for me, training honestly is my life. So whatever I feel is the goal for myself, and like you said, I'm not going to ask an athlete to do some type of spinal engine theory movement if I don't know how to do it, or I'm not just going to see it on Instagram or social media and put it into a program because it looks good. Like I'm going to try it out first, but to stay like super engaged in my training, I just kind of have a goal and align my training with that. And the same went for when I was an athlete. I just tried to become the best athlete as possible. And right now it looks a little bit different. I'm not really training for performance. I'm really training with the overarching theme of this all is mind, body, and soul. I'm lifting like a meathead. I'm trying to make every lift the hardest lift that I've had. And it's not exactly what I'm programming for athletes now, but I think if you're a coach, you don't need to train exactly like your athletes. You should have some experience with what they're doing. But at the end of the day, you just need to get your ass in the weight room and consistently try new things and stick to something. And like you said as well, Josh, if you're going to ask them to do a 5-minute ISO, you better be able to do it and do it better than them.
Sorry, there's a little bit of delay with Josh. I always try to give Josh a little bit of time to, but
Sorry about that.
no, it's good. It's good. I'm also halfway across the globe too, so it's probably on my end. But um, but yeah, I think for me personally, like going off of like Greg, what you said, like me and Greg's lifts at TCU were some of like the most grimiest. Like me and Greg, like because I had been so like sports specific for so long, where it was like I kind of got away from myself, and I think that was probably part of the issue too with me. But I got to TCU and me and Greg were like, hey, let's just do like the heaviest lifts we humanly can 4 days a week. and and it literally just consisted of like barbell bench, dips, pull-ups. What else did we do? I'm trying to think what else we did.
One of my favorite memories is when we were doing drop catch bench superset with the plyo push up, and what it was, TB walked over, he's like, what are you guys doing? And you're like, oh, we're just trying to get hurt.
Yeah.
Or
That's
or
awesome.
I'm doing Zercher squats. And TCU's football strength coach comes over, and you know, this guy is like, he's just like full. He's a full dude. And he asked what we were doing. We're doing some BDLs, some big dick lifts. I just told that to a grown man as an intern. Oh man. Great. Well, I guess going off of that, you know, Josh, we had a conversation on the phone. I think we've already talked enough about it. if you want to add anything else to it. But me and Josh had a conversation on the phone a few weeks ago when I was going to ask him to do this with us, Greg, and his thing that he said that I wrote down on my phone like as we were talking was, in order to change, you have to go beyond the physical in your training. So I guess, Josh, like for a young strength coach, or any strength coach that wants to kind of try to tap into what we've talked about, like what has been your experience programming that in a team setting? And then um, how can you ensure that, like, or I guess how do you progress it, I should say?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that one of the things that you have to understand is we, especially in today's culture and the current climate surrounding strength and conditioning and athletic performance, we largely chase and glorify outputs. And that's a good thing, and it's led to like pretty incredible performances and athletic feats. And there is also this inordinate amount of injuries that are taking place, and I would never ever try to say that like we can control that, but I do think that there is an element of understanding that it is entirely possible to improve someone's performance as it relates to their physical outputs without changing who they are from a structural standpoint or even from a mental or a spiritual standpoint. And I think that's when it gets really dangerous and you're putting people at risk. And one of the easiest ways that I think that you can mitigate some of that risk is by continually chasing discomfort. And I think discomfort is probably one of the simplest performance indicators in training. Because if all of your training is optimized, you're going to create, like in the words of Nassim Taleb, fragility, right? Like optimization is the enemy of anti-fragility. And what seems optimal to a strength coach is a clean cut program, something that looks like specific sets and reps. But what I've seen with my athletes, both in the college setting and with general population adult clients, is sometimes in order to get uncomfortable, you really have to remove yourself from the optimization that is a program and just push someone to their limit. And so, what I would really encourage people to do is know what it is, like what are the pathways, what are the safe pathways that you can take in order to bring someone to their limit. And that's why, when I was at DBU, like I used the lunge. That's why I used the wall sit. That's why I used the push-up ISO, like these are the safest things in the world to really push someone to discomfort. Who knows like how much physical adaptation I was even getting from hitting a couple of those a year or whatever. But I know that because I was taking these guys, and I still do, I take 60-year-old women to their limit, and it changes them because it opens up this new pathway of opportunity for them to push themselves to a deeper level of discomfort than they previously thought possible. And it's the sustainability, it's the consistency of that then really begins to produce the change from a structural standpoint and from the mental standpoint and from that spiritual standpoint as well.
I couldn't agree more on all of that. And even as a young strength coach, I mean, I've only been a full-time coach for a year, but I have seen, going back to my time interning, like before I got to TCU, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go down there and I'm gonna find the sauce for programming and how to lay out everything and like the perfect movements for performance and stuff like that. But the more that I've been coaching, and even through my time as an intern, and Miles, you saw this, like a lot of people are doing the same stuff. And it's good to have all the information on social media, but so many people I feel like buy into the quick jump in velo, or the quick body weight gain, or the quick improvement in sprint time. But you really just need to stick to a program and go all in on it. It can be the most simple program. And I tell athletes and all new athletes this anytime I work with them is you can have two programs. And I think, or the guys that you had on this last were talking about it, you can have two programs side by side. And it doesn't matter if it's written by someone who knows what they're doing or if it's Chat GPT. It's going to come down to, are you doing this work consistently and trying to uncover something, because you're not where you're at performance wise. Okay, let's try to get there, but you're also going to unlock new ways of thinking, new ways of moving, and all that stuff. And that's what sprinkles into other areas of life, not only as an athlete, but as a person.
Yeah, I I agree with you, Greg. I think everyone's always looking for that secret sauce. And I think you come to find out very fast that like there really is no secret sauce at all.
No.
There is no answer either. There is no secret
Mm-hmm.
sauce, but there also is no answer, which makes it that much more fun. So that's why I love asking like Josh all these questions, because when I got the DBU, it was like I always thought like, okay, now I'm at DBU, like for the first time in my life, I have an actual structured like program and like, and then, I'm like, oh, I've done all these movements before. It's like, it's not like anything crazy, but the thing that changed my perspective was everything that Josh just talked about right there. Um, I had some days where I really, really strongly disliked Josh. And there was days I wouldn't stay afterwards to talk to him. I just leave. But I guess going off of that, like, let's say you have these progressive ideas, right? Like a lunge ISO, like a push-up hold, that they're seen more as progressive. How do you convince traditional coaches or traditional coaching staff of like, hey, like we're not going to squat today, we're going to do this instead? How do you convince them like, hey, that this is safe, this is necessary, and going off of that, like how do you gain their trust with that?
Well, I can tell you, I I went through all of it, honestly. My arc as a strength and conditioning coach at high level Division I baseball was truly fascinating, and I think it really was, that classic like inverted U. I'm totally forgetting what the idea is, but we always actually would talk about it at DBU, that there was simplicity on the far side of complexity. And it's the classic, like at first, like I thought a squat was just a squat, and then like I saw that a squat was like so much more than a squat, and there's all these elements to it. And then like once you get to be an expert on something, it's just a squat. And so in that, when I first started working with baseball at DBU, again, I mean, like, kudos to Zach. Like, I was basically just trying to run the foundation program, like, extended as well as I could, and chasing a perfect program and all this stuff. And then what's so funny is like that just came to a screeching halt when I was introduced to Brady and just this different like style of thinking and this different approach. And I, like a very immature coach, basically just went all in. Like I said, I'm literally taking all of my chips and putting them all right here, which was, probably both at the same time the smartest and the dumbest thing that I had ever done. It was the smartest because, like, it's almost instantaneously changed the dynamic of how we trained as a program. It was also the dumbest thing that I had ever done because I didn't try to implement it in a smart and like methodically progressed way where we could like strategically implement things one by one slowly. So whenever something came up that went awry, where maybe we had some sort of weird injury or something like that, the first thing was, oh my gosh, it's this new method and style of training that caused this issue. Or, like the biggest one that first year was we saw this weird drop off in velo, like almost across the board. And, I'm not going to say that it wasn't me because I look back on it and I'm like, yeah, there was some stupid things that I did. But like if you're able to one by one strategically implement something that is seen as a little bit more progressive, starting with the things that have a high return on investment. Like no one is ever going to say no to their guys sitting in a lunge ISO, like almost crying because it's so painful. Every single coach on the face of the planet is going to say like, yes, 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 like that checks all the boxes. Not everyone is going to want their guys to be in deep humeral flexion in a deep push-up ISO, for 5 minutes with 95 pounds on their back or whatever, like, so it's doing it just in a smart and strategic way and making sure that you're communicating. I didn't communicate, honestly. Like if Coach Hefner ever watches this, I apologize, Coach Hefner. Like I was terrible at communicating these things. And that's what led to so many problems was that we had to backtrack and say, well, here's why I did this instead of, hey, here's why I want to do this. Let's meet in the middle. So yeah, I could literally go on and on and on, but I would love to hear Greg's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would say that's a cool perspective to see because I didn't spend much time in the college realm, but enough to understand like each coach, all of the coaches, not only Zach, are working with other coaches, and you have to have a reason behind what you're doing, even if it's the simplest reason. And Padula talks about the simplest explanation is the best explanation that you can give. And from my point of view and perspective, I'll just use one of my athletes as an example. He is an absolute meathead and a monster in the weight room. He loves to lift, not the most optimal for performance, but I got him because one of our other coaches left and he got passed to me. And I knew from the beginning that it was going to be a interesting experience because I knew like I'll give you a little bit more background on him. He was a like mid upper 80s guy, topped at like 88 before, but benches 305. Um just like absolute beast. But I knew that I needed to try some new things with him, but the way that I did it was almost like he loves the bench, but I'm going to give him some type of variation that he might not be able to load it up as much. And then I started to sprinkle in some more like spine work. And luckily, he fell in love with like the spine work and like I'd have some slow lowers in there, but just like talking with him because he's not afraid to ask me like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, I just want to get a pump and stuff like that. But just the communication on the skill side and the weight room side is the biggest thing, even for athletes who've never trained before. Like you just having those conversations with them, not only over what movements they're doing, but what you're trying to get out of it, I think needs to happen consistently because when you write a new program, going back to the dude I'm talking about now, when I start to sprinkle in a little bit more and more into it as we get closer to the season, kind of pulling back from the meathead lifting that I'm all for. I'm all for like becoming a monster in the weight room, but there comes a time where the skill is going to be more important while having the other stuff in there, the bench, the pump that he likes to get, but just keeping him in the loop of like, okay, this is why I'm doing it. This is what we're trying to improve. You look like a block when you throw, so we need to get you to understand how to throw from your spine or move like this on the mound. And that's something that he's bought into, and he's seen a lot of good turnout on that end. But I think it comes down to just being open with athletes. You don't need to tell them that you know everything, and you need to be okay with saying like, I don't know the answer to that. And I think that's what creates a lot more buy-in too, because we really don't have all the answers. And that's something that I've learned as I've been coaching more and more is the more I learn, the more I realize how little that I know.
Yeah, you said something there that also made me think. I mean, just when it comes to the athlete perspective, if I tell somebody to do 5 minutes of calf jumps, they're gonna look at me, and one, they're gonna say like I feel like an idiot. Two, like this is a complete waste of time. And that's when you have opportunity to be like, hey, you had shin splints before, like, this is something that can help with that, like obviously, there's always going to be a reason for the things that we do if you're being intentional as a coach and taking the time to bring it down to the level of the athlete, like to real life. I think will always be the most effective path towards creating that buy-in. Um, and obviously, if we're talking about shin splints, volume, workload, like that's the biggest thing, obviously. But yeah, so that was just an example that came to mind.
Yeah, I think this is just a great conversation because I think I'm like the most curious person of all time. Like I always asking questions. I was always an athlete, like not challenging, hey, why are we doing this? But it's like, hey, like why, like I want to know why. Like I want to ask questions, and like that was the one thing that I really appreciate about Josh. And even too with you, Greg, like whenever I ask you, because you, Ezra, and Jacob were 30 times smarter than I was on the strength side. I was always asking questions, and like when there wasn't an answer that you guys could provide, it was like, hey, I'm gonna go find it. Like I'm gonna go find that answer. Now I'm curious too. And then I get it either there in 10 minutes or in a couple of days. But yeah, that's the one thing that I think I really do appreciate about both of you guys and a lot of the guys that I have worked with in the past is that they're open to having conversations. And I think the minute that a coach says like, this is the way we're doing it, we're not doing it any other way, it's like, hey man, like, you kind of just closed off an entire conversation that could help somebody down the road. um and even too just like buy-in, yeah, and credibility. Like if you no one likes that guy that's like, oh, like, it's this way or no way, and it's like, well, like, but I guess going off of that too, like, Greg, for you, for example, like you were offered the grad assistant position at TCU. You had between the college realm and the private sector, and you chose the private sector to go that route just because of the things that we had talked about all the time and things that we had seen together. It was like, hey, there's a clear um, position that the strength coach is in. It's like a rock and a hard place. Like you're the guy to blame for everything, and then you're the guy that if you're not programmed in a certain way, that's in the belief of the coaching staff. There's a clear, I guess, problem with the relationship. I mean, I watched athletes do like 80, what was it, it was like 30 80-yard shuffles. I'm not gonna say where it was at or who it was, but it was like 30 80-yard shuffle runs, and when their hamstrings were sore, the strength coach was blamed for doing RDLs, for 3 sets of 8 RDLs. So that's kind of the relationship that I think is tough with a lot of college strength coaches, which is why I personally would, if I was going to be a strength coach, I'd work in the private sector, probably, where I just microdose the shit out of like ISO lunges. But I don't know. I think the fear of injury like is just so it sucks because like I've talked about this before, but I've seen guys get injured doing pal-off presses. Like I saw a guy tore his labrum doing a pal-off press. I've seen a guy tear his labrum doing a dumbbell bench press. So it's like, dude, you can get hurt walking outside to your car. It was like, I think it's just kind of funny when the strength coach gets blamed, unless you're doing something absolutely insane like those 50-foot depth drops for a guy with knee problems. But I guess, yeah, we can wrap this up. I have one more question for both of you guys. For um, strength coaches like myself or young guys that want to get into the field, like, what are some of the best books you've read? And what are some of the best sources that you've used to shape your training and coaching philosophies?
Greg, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I'll go, and I won't give a traditional answer because truthfully, I haven't read a lot of training books, more so on the end of like podcasts and articles. So starting with some podcasts and articles. Yoakum's podcast is awesome. I just like listening to different coaches talk and talking to other coaches like this, because once you see how open-minded coaches are and knowing, all right, there's no perfect way to do it, but what are these guys doing and how are they communicating that they get these good results? So listening to people that Yoakum have on the podcast, the Coach 'em Up podcast, Tim Riley. I did Padula's mentorship program, not the whole thing. I'll be open about that. Like, once there were, like, Blaine McConnell went on it, and I didn't end up watching that one, just work and whatever bullshit excuses that I have to not finish it. But I just like hearing other people talk, and when I can write things down from what other people say, it helps me dive a little bit deeper. So on that end, I think just listening to other coaches talk and trying to ask questions. I learned a lot from Zach when I was down there, Logan, Woody, all the other coaches that are there. Just having conversations, I think, is like the biggest thing. No questions are dumb questions, and the more questions you can ask, and even the guys that I work with now, like, they know a lot more about throwing than I do. They know different areas of training, and they've worked with a lot of different people. So just having those conversations. But two books that I would recommend, and this is coming from the time that I really dove into training in that summer. One, The Alchemist. It's a fiction book, but I think it opens up a different way of thinking about life that I've seen bleed into training, even if it's not for training. That is like another big book. And then uh, How to Make Your Bed. Simple book, easy book, but I've learned so much from it. And people can say it's eyewash to make your bed every day, but I think when you stack things that you don't want to do, it only makes everything else that you do better. If you make your bed every single day, that's one thing that you didn't want to do, or maybe you like enjoy making your bed every day. If that's the case, awesome. But doing something that you don't want to do and just having a different perspective, reading other books, if that's fiction books, if that's driveline articles, stuff like that, that's what's going to help you learn. It doesn't need to be the training manuals for baseball or like anatomy books. You just need to be curious and open-minded that there are many different ways to train and there are many different ways to coach. And that's how I feel I've continued to learn, is just being open to everything and not looking at anything in absolutes, which is something that I've got from Driveline. Is once I realized like there is no perfect way to program, to train, there may be things that are better in some cases than others, but there's no black and white, especially in sports, especially in training. And once you can understand that, I think that's when it opens up a whole different realm of programming and whatever else interests you in coaching and training.
It's good. I would recommend Super Training. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, no. I'm honestly very close to you, Greg. I feel like the two books that I would recommend would be, I mentioned it already, one, Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. That is the book that first really opened my eyes to the concept of fragility, and again, how optimization creates an artificially fragile environment. And that was really what changed my perspective on, specifically, and this would be a whole nother rabbit hole to dive down, circuits at DBU for pitchers. It made me a movement optimist, so to say, when it came to pitcher circuits. I'm sure Miles has maybe told you a little bit about them. So
Actually,
that
I haven't.
book, oh wow, okay, geez,
Yeah,
well,
sorry.
maybe that's an offline convo. Yeah, but that book just it gave me such a great paradigm for how to intentionally create a little bit of chaos inside a program so as to do my best to facilitate an anti-fragile system, like a really resilient and robust system. The other one, at risk of sounding cliche, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That book really changed my perspective on how I handled being a strength coach at the college level and dealing with those things, Miles, like you were saying, like receiving the blame. It's like, okay, like I'll take it. I will literally take whatever it is that you have to throw at me because I know that I can do something different to make it better. And I really do believe that that mindset is so essential if you want to thrive as a collegiate strength and conditioning coach. It's like I will own anything that you can throw at me and I will overcome. Um, so those are powerful. And then yeah, like podcasts are huge. Doing programs yourself, like do as many without program hopping too much, like understand the way that other coaches think through their work. That is really the only way that I believe that you can really understand someone's ideological framework is by doing it. And so I learned so much through doing Dax programs, through doing Fowler's programs, through doing Yoakum's programs, through whoever it was. I don't know, so many guys. But that really, really formed me in many ways.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to do something is to just dive right into it. I'm kind of a product of that. I was with Tread Athletics for a few years, right? But then like after that, I've kind of been bouncing around to different things. Like for example, DBU, and then after that it was TCU, and now it's kind of more obviously private sector stuff now. So like I've been with Brady. I'm currently with Anthony with Cassiola Performance. And even though Anthony's kind of he's someone who's worked under Dak or under Brady. He still does his own thing as well, or has his own twist on things. So my grandpa hates when I cuss on these, but this is the title of the book. The title of the book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. For me, that was a book I read right before I went to Germany. I had it sitting on my bookshelf for I think probably 3 or 4 years. I never read it. I just always had it sitting there because it looked nice and pretty because I had a book. I had one book. And I finally read it when I was in Germany. And that compared with the ISO lunges, compared with everything that was going on in my life, definitely a huge perspective change for me. And actually, I recommended it. The one book I've read, I recommended it to the import here. Um, who's in Australia with me right now, and he was like, dude, that was the best book like I've ever read. Like, I loved it. And now he's reading a lot more than I am. So um, I like to try to read a little bit more. That's why I strategically asked that question because I wanted to find some books for me to read. So um, anyway, if there's anything you guys else want to add, please, I'm all ears. If not, we can wrap it up.
Well, I need to shamelessly plug something that I've been working on, in regards to this passion for the mind, body, and the soul. It's a project that I've begun called 2x2. It's the 2x2 movement. And the whole idea, it came to me when a former DBU baseball player approached me actually earlier this year and asked if I'd be able to program for him both an exercise program as well as a spiritual program. And I thought, like, that is the craziest thing. And I've never thought of that, like bringing the intentionality of a strength coach into how you approach your faith. And so really like I went back to my DBU days and thought about, the mind, the body, and the soul, how we want to be intentional about training those things. And I said, like, let's do that. And so I've been working on creating a framework around training holistically the mind, the body, and the soul. And we've created a subscription-based program where guys specifically is kind of our target audience, and a community that we're looking at can subscribe to the program and on a daily basis receive a workout, receive a devotional exercise, and then also receive something that is intellectually stimulating, whether that's like a piece of curated content, a podcast, a YouTube video, a blog post, or something that encourages like interpersonal development, how to go deeper in relationships by asking better questions or doing things that like take other people into consideration. So it's something that I'm really excited about, and it just takes that intentionality of training into all of life and makes training athletes, not just the only fun thing to do out there, but helping everybody. So
One other book I'd recommend, but I think we could all be on the same page about this one, the Bible. There's a lot of wisdom packed in that just the name of the book, I mean, it's the greatest book of all time, but just the name of the book wouldn't be able to explain like the subtle art of not giving a fuck. There are ways that the Bible teaches you many different things that isn't in the name. So dive into the Bible, doesn't matter where you start, just open it up and start reading.
Hell yeah. Well, cool. Well, again, I really do appreciate both of you guys. This is really fun. I really was looking forward to this. I'm glad we did it. So I appreciate both of you guys being here. I know we're all, I guess I'm in a different time zone. I know it's probably a little bit more challenging for everybody, but again, thank you guys both. Greg, if there's anything that you want to say, you want to shout out anybody, anyone you love, hold dearly, any thing you're working on, the floor is yours.
I would say there is a project currently that I'm working on. It's on the skill side though, not really weight room related, but just starting something up. And I think that for a lot of coaches out there, if you can just dive into building something of your own, like Josh, you were just talking about the 2x2, which I think is awesome. But as a coach, I think if you can strive and just have in your headlights, like, I'm going to be the best coach that I can, and not just try to fit in with many different coaches' thought processes or programming ways, like actually just opening your mind to building something of your own. I think that you will find a lot of fulfillment, not only because coaching is fulfilling, seeing athletes do well on the field and off the field and become better people is fulfilling, but when you really dive in and create something of your own to benefit other people, I think that's when you can really see coaching as a career and see it as something long term, and ultimately have your growth be off the charts or something that you haven't thought about before. Just taking ownership of something and just putting your time into it and building it. Shout out mom and dad and the good Lord.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing I'll add is like this is what holistic training really is, right? Like everyone always sells their holistic program, but if it's squat, hinge, push, pull, single leg, it's like, how deep are you really willing to go? Or how deep are you going in your programming? So anyway, I appreciate both you guys being here. Josh, congratulations on being on a new dad, 3 months in. We'll have
thanks,
to
dude.
get together another time and ask for some updates. So
Heck yeah, I probably need to go change a diaper, honestly.
yeah, sounds good. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate both
All
you
right,
guys
guys.
being here. Talk to you guys here later.
Thanks, Mom.
Appreciate it.
See you, Greg.
Yes, sir.
See ya.
Greg.
Oh, baby.
Hold on, bro. I didn't stop recording. Hold on.
You could put that in there.